Hey guys, it's Kelly. I'm glad you found yourself here today. We're having some conversations about friendship, and specifically, we're going to talk about the importance of friendship in a season of marriage. And so I'm here with Jimmy, my husband, and with our good friends, the Barefield. So I'd love for you guys to share a little bit about yourselves, who you are, how long you've been married, and then we can
ready to go.
Share about us.
Hello, I'm Jess, and
I'm Trip, and we're the... That's just what it felt like for that. I'm Trip, and we've been married for about 10 years.
Yeah, and we just moved back to Dallas, and so
Woohoo.
now we're close to you guys.
Hey, friendship.
We love it.
Yay. And you guys have 2 kids.
We have 2 kids,
Yeah.
4 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
Keeping you
names.
busy.
they are always keeping us busy. Yeah,
And they are not friends because they're siblings. But maybe one day
they're
they can be.
frenemies.
Yeah.
They're frenemies.
One day they'll
Yeah.
be friends.
But they're friends with your kids.
That's true.
Right.
Yes. And we are the Needhams.
Wow.
My name's Jimmy. We have 3 kids,
3 kids.
8, 6, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And
Little fun fact, a couple of our oldest girls write books right now, and your kids, Q and Selah, show up quite a bit in
they're
Lively and
usually
Sophie's
the lead characters.
books.
Yeah.
And I think Q
Wow.
started that with like
Yes.
making books about things, so it's kind of fun.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and we've been married almost 13 years. Did
Yeah.
you say that?
I did not.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're almost 13 years. And I think that sometimes people can get a false idea that getting married can in some way meet all your relational needs and friendship becomes more optional after that. And I don't think that's true. And I don't think either one of us operate in that way. So that's what I want to talk about is why is friendship important in a season of marriage, in your season of marriage? And how does marriage change that? And why is it important to continue fighting for those friendships outside of your marriage?
Well, I mean, I'll start and say this. I'm sure y'all felt this too. When you get married, like your life is about to change, but it changes even in ways you don't expect, and in good ways. But also it's like, oh yeah, life as I knew it is over. It's a whole new thing, and so I think it can be difficult to, if the way you think about your friendships and when you hang out with your friends and how often. All of that shifts a little bit when you get married. And so I think that's one of the things that can contribute to people feeling like, oh, well, I guess all my relational needs are met here and now. But we don't want to give in to that. We want to make sure, it's not like because we're married, we no longer have need for friends. I think it kind of goes along with the marriage as a way to, like, you complete me, like you're all I need. And of course, there are some ways that your spouse is the only one that meets particular needs, but not all the needs of our friendships.
So Jerry Maguire's wrong.
I don't remember what he said, but
Did you see
That's what
that?
Oh,
That's
you've
funny.
never seen Jerry Maguire?
yeah, probably.
The "You
Yeah.
Complete Me" thing. That's like famous, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
from
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
But that's
It's
a
famous
lie.
if you're 33.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we're not.
Not you,
Much
whippersnapper over there.
Huh. What year were you born, Jimmy Needham?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yes, we digress. Yes. But you're.
This is my swag makes you think I'm younger than I am. Go ahead.
Oh.
Kelly.
I took a turn.
Well, but the point that you're making is that your marriage doesn't complete you.
That's right.
It's not filling and meeting every need that you have.
It meets some very important needs.
Yes.
There's something special about the bond of marriage. This is in no way, because I do feel like my wife is my best friend.
Yes.
So this is in no way saying that there's not really real needs met and great friendship within marriage.
Yes.
It's just nowhere in scripture does God suggest like, and that meets all of your relational needs. And so even if we wouldn't say that with our mouths, we do treat it like that sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes it can be such a gift that the outside friendship of, obviously in a healthy way, like, hey, this has been a rough week in our marriage or whatever, you know, like, and just me knowing that there are guys in his life that are going to ask him questions, you know, that you're not the only person
That's right.
that is trying to, you know, love on them and encourage them, even spiritually. Like, there's just so much benefit in and other friends being a part of the equation, and carrying that load as we like all care for each other. It's not just my responsibility to be his friend, and I want that because I think that makes him more healthy, and that makes us more healthy. So I think it's super important.
And just to add on to what she said, it's unfair to your spouse to try to make them bear all the burden of your relational needs. That's not fair for any spouse to have to bear it. I don't think it was meant to be that way. And so, so we want to be fair to our spouses by not putting all of our relational needs on them. No one person can hold all of that.
That's right. Yeah. I think there's sometimes too bad habits we can get into even in our marriages. That if that's the only person who's close to you, you have no outside voices to speak into that. Whether that's another woman who can look at me and be like, wow, you're being really disrespectful of your husband every time you talk about him, and to call that out. Or you seem to be placing all your identity in your marriage and not in Christ. And that might not be something that's visible to my husband, but a friend who's hearing you talk and watching your life from outside of this really important union can actually help make this marriage better. Yeah,
there is an accountability that's needed outside of the space of my marriage that can have eyes on the situation in here. That it would be weird to look to you to hold me accountable for like something in our relational dynamic. Yeah, will you tell me every?
You're loving me very well.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm gonna hold you accountable to that.
Jimmy, I'm thinking of a time we went to In-N-Out or something because you were hungry. And so we were in the car.
I'm pretty sure it was the opposite, but go ahead. Yeah.
We was in the car and we were just talking about our marriages. What kind of, asking each other, hey, what do you think is your weakest point in your marriage right now? And we both shared that with each other. We both had opportunities to encourage each other, to challenge each other, and chances to check back in with each other. So that us having a friendship that's not just in our marriage is good for our marriage. It's not a threat to our married relationship.
That's right.
It's good for our married relationship. That's part of what helps that relationship be strong.
And I think for that to be the case, it does require that intentionality, because there is a version of like, I've got a bunch of friends outside my marriage where it's just like, and we play Halo all day and I'm never with my wife. And it's like,
and it's an escape from your marriage.
Totally. Yeah. But I would say, like, to your point, when me and you get to spend time together, there's a let's hang out component, and there's also a like, no, I care about you thriving and your marriage thriving. So we're gonna ask some questions right now and just be able to pray for each other, and but it does require that extra step of intentionality. So if we're gonna say something like it's good to have friendships outside of our marriages, we should add to that, and those friendships should be packed with intentionality, and not just passive relationships where you just have fun, period.
And I think one of the benefits of having good friendships outside of my marriage is it makes me want to be a better husband. So like I'll see dudes who do things better than I do as a husband, and it's like, oh, I want to be like that to my wife. I want to love my wife like that. There's one little example. Jimmy's life. I love how supportive Jimmy is of you, Kelly, and with the book, and excitement about that, and trying to do everything he can to really support that. And that makes me ask, oh, am I making sure I'm being really supportive of my wife and all the things that the Lord is doing in her life? I think that's one of the benefits of choosing your friends outside your marriage good, too, is that they have good influence on you to help you to be a better husband or wife.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is, depending on what your dynamic is in marriage, you can kind of fall into, two pitfalls of like, maybe friendship doesn't come as easy, in your marriage. And so it's easier for you to kind of like run outside of that, or on the flip side, we're so tight and we don't let other people in. And it's just helpful, as thinking about your own marriage, like, where do I land in that? And like, what ways can I, improve in that? Do I need to, be like, hey, can't hang out this weekend, haven't had a date night in like 100 years, and you're not prioritizing that initial friendship? Or is it like we're suffocating each other and we need people to be like brought in? I think you can land like on a lot of different places when it comes to those outside friendships in your marriage.
And if you haven't had a date night 100 years, either you or your spouse is deceased.
That's right.
For the record.
Good. Thanks for clarifying that.
Just so I didn't want anybody to get confused out there.
Thank you.
Well, and I think that's a good word too to people watching. Are there some practical steps that we might be able to give to people who are maybe saying, man, I have no friends besides like outside of my marriage. I'm pretty isolated. Or they're in that pitfall you said, Jess, like I'm escaping over there. Like how can we encourage people to maybe take some steps in a good direction to fight for healthy friendships outside of their marriage? That can feel intimidating to work towards sometimes. So what are some things we can give them?
You know, anything with marriage, like this is a group project. And so I have to fight, you know, personally, I gotta, keep connected to people, but like we're fighting for each other. So I'm making sacrifices so that he can go to the movies and hang out. And, I think sometimes on both sides, but especially for the wife, or if you're a stay-at-home mom and you're bearing a lot of that, they're gone, and us specifically, he travels a lot. And so something like just hanging out and doing something fun can feel like, I don't want you to do that. Like
you've already been gone all week.
Right. And so
you want to go out and see a movie,
right.
Or hang out.
But that for me, like fighting and saying, no, that's important. Like that's a priority that I want to fight for in his life. And so, and then same for him, for me is that the sacrifices that you have to make when you're tired and you're working, all this stuff that we can say, just going out and having fun is something that is life-giving to our spouse. And so we're going to do whatever kind of things you have to do practically to make it work. You can just get really stuck in the just work and home and cooking and dinner and bedtime and wake up and do it all over again. And I think, I know he always laughs at me, like sometimes when I hang out with my friends, he'll come back and he'll be like, oh, you have the fellowship glow. But just like how, how filled up to just like go out and hang out and do whatever. Totally. And how, it seems like you can convince yourself that it's maybe not that important because it's just fun, but that is something that we have to really strive for and make the sacrifices to make it work.
Yeah. Well, I see one of the ways that I lead my family, and one of the ways I care for my wife, as encouraging her towards relationships. So when I think about leading my wife spiritually, I'm not just thinking about, hey, let's talk about the Bible together, let's pray together. I'm also thinking, I want to encourage you towards the kinds of relationships you need to flourish and thrive. So agreeing with you in terms of making the sacrifices to make sure there's space for that. But then also for me, if we're having conversations, that's one of the things I'm often checking in with her about. Those are some of the things. And so if we're in some season where one of us or both of us don't have the kind of relationships that we need, then maybe that means we need to do some things together. Maybe our next date night, we go on a date with another couple so that we can build those relationships.
So I know there's some people that are probably watching this that are in really difficult places in their marriage. Maybe there's health problems going on. Maybe they're married to somebody who's not a Christian and they're trying to walk faithfully, or maybe just tension that's built up over years of time. What place can friends have in a healthy way, not to, like we talked about earlier, not to be a pitfall to like not deal with their marriage and escape it, but how can that person pursue friendships, and what role would those friendships give to them to help in that really difficult season of marriage?
In all kind of seasons of trial, one of God's just sweetest gifts to us is other people to walk with us through it. And I think, especially if we're having difficulties in our marriage, the temptation can be just to kind of isolate ourselves, and we kind of want to put on a good image, and we don't want to let people into our business. But man, time after time, when I've seen marriages in really tough spots that the Lord brings to a much better spot, it's often just through people lovingly walking alongside people, either challenging people or just encouraging people while it's tough. Even when it's tough love to one of the other spouse who's in sin or in a tough spot. I was at a conversation with somebody just a couple days ago, and they were telling me about the difficulty of their marriage in the season and asking me for counsel, and I was trying to get a feel for how to pray for them. And I think that's just part of what it means to be believers, is to bear one another's burdens. But if we're in a tough spot, we have to give other believers a chance to help us bear our burdens by being open enough and by understanding that God doesn't mean for us to bear those all alone. So I think, especially when we're in a tough spot marriage-wise, it's good to have healthy friendships, not as an escape, but as a help to really engage in your marriage and to figure out how to do it in a God-honoring way.
Another form of difficulty that I've seen in both of our marriages that's actually is kind of unique is that both you guys have done a lot of traveling and touring as artists. But I find that I have a lot in common with wives whose husbands are coaches for teams, high school teams. They travel a lot and are gone late nights, or who are married to men who are firefighters or police officers, like there's shifts. And that puts you in a space too. I think that's been really helpful for me as a wife to go, all my needs can't be met here. When you're on the road and it's about to ice over and I don't know what to do with the stuff in my house, I can call my friends, my single friends, my friends' husbands, be like, can you come over and help me? And they can't. I think that's a really beautiful picture of community.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of spouses, and I don't think it's just wives. I think husbands deal with the same thing in different ways, that we find difficulties that this alone can't meet all the needs.
Yeah.
And if you're not in a church, where are those relationships
Right.
gonna be that you're forming, that you can call those people and ask them? So I think that's a good continual push for friendship, is to get yourself in a local church. Build those relationships now for when you need them. They're already in place.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just thinking about the time that Trip was on the road.
yes, please. Let's
And
tell
it
that.
was pouring rain for
Oh,
like
yes.
3 days. and I hadn't taken the trash out, and our trash can was full of trash.
Lid open.
Trash and water, and it was too heavy for me to carry. And so I had to call Jimmy to come
Grossest
over.
night of my life.
No, correct. Let's correct that. You called me just like, here's this problem, and
I was probably crying.
oh yeah, hysterically, and
It's one of those
thought the house
things.
had burned down. But yeah, it was one, and here's the thing, like I felt like, oh, I'm gone, I can't help. I felt bad,
Yeah.
but I was helped by saying, hey, Jimmy lives down the street, and I know Jimmy is a servant, and that he would love to pour out some
We
dirty
literally
trash water.
almost threw up. It was so
Out of
gross.
the
It
dirty
was
trash
so
water.
bad. It had to have been 70 gallons of water and dirty diapers.
For the record,
No,
we
diapers.
don't have kids in
babies.
diapers.
No.
Also, couldn't have been
Nice.
70 gallons. I don't think.
You don't
it's
think
possible.
70?
No.
I actually did a calculation just now.
And just when I think trash water, I think you. Second, another example.
This will all be cut. This will all be cut. It's fine. You can really say whatever.
If
right
you
now.
say that, it never gets cut. Now, just another example. It was a long time ago, maybe, well, I guess it was 6 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was on the road. Our tour bus got stuck in the snow, so there was even no way for me to get home. But our son got sick, and long story short, he was in the emergency room, and there was no way for me to get home because I'm on tour and we're in the mountains of Nevada somewhere. Man, we had church members and friends who stepped in and cared for my wife and my family in ways that I just was deeply grateful for. Who, you know, because our son was an infant, you know, so you know, he had to be held because he was sad and he was not in good shape. But you couldn't fall asleep. You couldn't go to sleep and hold. They wouldn't allow you to do that. So they had church members who came and stayed up all night holding our son so that she could get a little bit of rest.
Wow.
But that's just the kind of stuff, like I'm gone and I can't meet all the needs. I'm a man. I'm not God. And any person who's not God cannot meet all your needs. And so just another reminder of just the need for friendships who love and care for you.
That's good.
Yeah. Well, we sure are grateful to have you guys as friends,
Mhm.
and that you live like close to us now, which is really fun.
That's
So,
awesome.
and thank you guys for talking with me today about this. And I hope that it's encouragement to you, if you're married or single, to build friendships in your church communities, and to not just let and think marriage is all that you need. You need more than that. And so I hope that you'll be encouraged and challenged to do that today.